Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Normal Tuesday suspects headed your way. Glenn West at 1:30 talking Tigers. Sharief Ishak at 2:30 talking Saints. ESPN.com has put out their final top 250 for the Major League Baseball draft. We're going to get into LSU's high school prospects in hour number 2. I want to talk about Connor Ware, who I wrote about LouisianaSports.net today. Kind of in that same vein, what his decision is going to look like and what he potentially could be for LSU if he were to come back. And Alvin Kamara, is he in the top 10 running backs as ESPN goes through the top 10 at each position in the NFL? We'll talk about it in the next segment. Let's get things started the way we do every day with our Genesis Opening Drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
It was announced, or reported, I guess I should say, last night from the Oxford side of things and from the Baton Rouge side of things that LSU had made a new hire, added a new staffer to its recruiting operation, and he comes from Ole Miss. Kelvin Bolden, who has been the coordinator of recruiting strategy in Oxford for the last 3 years, is headed to Baton Rouge. Now, this is an era unlike any we've ever traversed here in the college sports landscape, and especially in the college football landscape, where you're talking about far larger rosters than baseball or basketball or women's basketball or softball. And you're talking about a lot of money, more money than is being doled out for women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, softball. These recruiting operations are massive, and they don't look like they did 15 years ago, where you had a position coach who was also your recruiting coordinator, and your head coach was kind of the closer, and everybody had their little area, and you went and tried to get as much high-end high school talent as you possibly could and develop a roster year over year, run a program. Now, you certainly got to manage talent, but it's going out as fast as it's coming in. And you've got to handle the financial aspect of it, making sure that the players are satisfied with their compensation or they'll leave. It looks far more like the NFL than it does college football. And therefore, the administration and the composition of the football department looks different than it did 10 years ago. It's not just a head coach, some positional coaches, couple coordinators, and some analysts. You've got to have evaluation, not just the high school evaluation. You got to evaluate the entire country. It goes in the transfer portal, and you've got to manage that roster to understand if we lose this guy and this guy and this guy, how are we going to fill it with this guy and this guy and this guy? And the person that's been in charge of all of this for the last couple of years in Baton Rouge is Austin Thomas. Brian Kelly thinks Austin Thomas is awesome. Scott Woodward thinks Austin Thomas is awesome. The consensus around college football is that Austin Thomas is awesome. And he's been given a big influence in that building as to how that football program is going to operate. Where did Austin Thomas come from this time? Ole Miss. Who did he work with? Kelvin Bolden. It sounds like, based on Joe Sloan's tweet that had Austin Thomas in it, and what we're hearing from the Ole Miss side of things, is that this is a name and a hire that Austin Thomas was very much in favor of. I probably can go as far as to say spearheaded. He wants this guy in this role at LSU to help him put together the best roster year after year after year that LSU possibly can. So LSU made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Kelvin Bolden is going to become LSU's assistant general manager, not a position that's ever been held at LSU. It's a newly created position. He'll get a nice pay bump. It probably helps LSU to an extent that his children are high school aged and are in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, which is closer to Baton Rouge than it is to Oxford. Oxford way up in the northern part of the state. Ocean Springs down south. And this is the move that he thinks is his best in terms of furthering his career. And LSU appears to be the beneficiary of that. Now, look, I can't look at Kelvin Bolden's body of work and adequately assess it. Like, there's no way for me to do that. If you hire an offensive coordinator that's been an offensive coordinator for 5 years and his offenses score 48 points per game, that's pretty good. If you hire an offensive coordinator who's been coordinating offenses for 5 years and he scores 9 points per game, that's not very good. If you hire a head coach whose lifetime winning percentage is 81%, that's really good. If it's 31%, it's not very good. There are numbers that I can sit here as a talking head and analyze when you make hires. I can't really do that with Kelvin Bolden in this instance because he's an off-field coach who is helping with recruiting. I don't know which of Ole Miss's top 20 classes he was the most involved in. I don't know what he does when he's in front of these student athletes on an official visit or an in-home visit. I don't know what makes him better as far as cultivating relationships with this player or with this guardian, or like that's how am I supposed to? I don't know that. But what I can do is I can look at what the Ole Miss fan base and really football program thinks of him. Well, how do I do that? Well, Chase Parham, who is now with 24/7 Sports, who does an awesome job covering Ole Miss, broke this story from the Ole Miss side. He sent out a tweet yesterday at 7:15 p.m. that said the Ole Miss Director of Recruiting Strategy, Kelvin Bolden, is in talks to head to LSU in an elevated off-the-field role. Dropped a post and more on his message board, hearing it's likely already done. Here is the response to Chase's tweet from the Ole Miss fans. No, this is not ideal. No, come on, Ole Miss. Damn. No, 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 no. He was incredible. No. Mistake not matching the offer. Well then, LSU putting Kiffin back in a locker. Imagine that. Very bad news. Awful news. KB is the man. Hate to see. I keep going. But this is the reaction from the Ole Miss side. It appears that those who have followed Ole Miss and have enjoyed the fact that Ole Miss has won 21 games in the last 2 years think he had a large hand in that. And it appears Austin Thomas feels that way too. And it appears Brian Kelly feels that way too. So that, on its face, looks awesome. Now, Ole Miss and LSU are not exactly the same when it comes to recruiting. But they've gotten closer in the last 2 years. Because for my entire life of following roster management in college football, LSU has recruited at the 4 and 5 star level, top 7, top 5 in the country perennially. Ole Miss has recruited 3 and 4 stars, tried to hold on for dear life in the state of Mississippi, ranked usually between 20 and 30, and that's where they've been in high school recruiting. Well, Lane Kiffin takes over and says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're still probably not going to out-recruit Nick Saban at Alabama for high school kids. But if we can raise a bunch of money through this Grove Collective, and we can pay kids for 1 year to come here and outbid everybody else who's still trying to do this the old-fashioned way in recruiting high school kids, we may be able to catch up. And they have. Ole Miss, over the last 2 seasons, has been a top 4 SEC football program. It would be impossible to argue outside of that. And that's never been the case in my time watching Ole Miss football. And then Brian Kelly on the other side said, we're going to do this with high school players. We're going to recruit the best of the best from across the country with our national brand, and we're going to develop players, and we're not going to buy players. And then he watched Ole Miss buy players and watched his staff miss out on players because they weren't buying them. And he said, well, we should probably start buying players. And they did this past year. And they've got the number 1 transfer class in the country. So if that's the way you want to do this, and I realize that revenue sharing has been introduced now and things are a little bit different, but football at LSU is going to get a $15 million boon from this with the revenue sharing. So You can swim in the deep water with a lot of teams at $15 million revenue sharing. And Bolden's been in the middle of that for the last 3 years. So that's a long way of saying, like, I think this is a really good hire for LSU. I can't prove it because there's not a track record I can pull up on the internet or reach out and touch on a piece of paper. But the reputation is sterling. The results on the field for Ole Miss, even though he's not coaching them, have been excellent. And the guy that's in charge of running this thing, one rung below Brian Kelly and Austin Thomas, is vouching for him because he's worked with him, and everybody in Baton Rouge is okay with rubber stamping that. And so am I. So if this is a deal where it helps LSU and hurts Ole Miss in the process, sign me right on up for that. Because that's a team that you are directly competing with right now. One, on the field the last 2 years, and two, for a spot in the college football playoff. Both of these teams had similar seasons last year. I would argue that Ole Miss did so with a more talented roster, but LSU beat them down here because they made some plays when they absolutely had to late in that game. But this looks to be very, very good news for LSU. If you missed it last night, missed it today, just hop into the car. Kelvin Bolden, a former Southern Miss wide receiver who's gotten into the administrative side of college football and has been doing a great job off the field for Ole Miss, is coming in a similar role at LSU. It's a promotion in terms of title and in money. He'll be the assistant general manager to Austin Thomas, and those two guys will spearhead LSU's roster building moving forward. Kelvin Bolden headed to LSU. That is our Genesis opening drive. All right, still plenty to get to here on this Tuesday. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Glenn West going to be with us in about 20 minutes talking LSU. I've got some baseball thoughts on LSU signing class at the top of hour number 2. When we come back, ESPN is doing their annual run through the NFL position by position. They started with running backs. I've gotten to defensive tackles. Today I wanted to go talk about the running backs. Is Alvin Kamara a top 10 running back in the NFL? We'll tell you what ESPN thinks. I'll tell you what I think next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Vaughn and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Safety is a big, big deal when you talk about the bathroom, especially as folks age. If there's a loved one in your life that you feel like could be in a compromised position in the bathroom, could be in a hazardous situation in the bathroom, do what you can to mitigate that damage. Go ahead and put in non-slip floors, guardrails near slippery areas. Walk-in tub can be more convenient, safer. Shower with a bench in it. These are the things that David Vaughn and his team do all the time. If you want to start that process with that free consultation, say, hey, when can we start this and what will that look like? David Vaughn is happy to sit down with you and have that conversation. You can check him out at onebathandclosets.com, get that free consultation, see pictures of his great work, as well as some satisfied customers and their reviews. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online at onebathandclosets.com.
There it is, the extra mile. On the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further. Like vans customized for work or play. With safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Flight by Yingling is raising the bar by crafting the next generation of light beer. With only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Flight by Yingling. Raise the bar.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
At Luba Workers' Comp, our journey began over 30 years ago with a simple belief: our clients come first.
At Luba, our business has always been focused on people, not policies. Through every success and challenge, we've continued to grow because we've stayed true to our values, committed to providing you with genuine dependability.
Because your well-being is more than a priority. It's our purpose.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Ochsner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Men, age is just a number. Don't let it dictate how you feel. Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness has anti-aging services that can help you look and feel your best. Visit yourgoodwood.com and discover a renewed sense of vitality.
These are the luckiest ice cubes in the world. They could have been a thankless bed for an all-you-can-eat salad.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, a little bit of breaking news. I'm going to talk about this in the next hour, but I'll relay the information to you here. As you well know, we'll be at SEC Football Media Days as a station next week. Crew is going to fly over to Atlanta on Sunday, and we'll be ready to rock for Monday morning with OTB. I'll be there from 1 to 3 every day, and then Matt will be on AFR from 3 to 6 every day. So 3 shows locally from SEC Media Days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. And it was just announced who LSU is going to bring to SEC Football Media Days. And I got it right last week when we guessed. Of course, Garrett Nussmeier will be there, and Whit Weeks will be there. We assumed those two. And I just thought maybe based on a guy that could potentially be looking at a breakout year, a guy that's put in a lot of work, a guy that's overcome a lot of hardship in his time in Baton Rouge. Chris Hilton will be the other attendee for LSU. So Garrett Nussmeier, Whit Weeks, and Chris Hilton will be in Atlanta on Monday. LSU part of the first 4 teams that will take the stage on Monday. So I'll talk a little bit about those 3 guys coming at the end and during hour number 2, but wanted to pass that along because we just got that email from the SEC office. So good for those 3 guys, and we will see them in Atlanta. All right, the ESPN every single year goes through right before training camp starts, and they go through every position on the field, and they talk to executives, coaches, scouts, and they compile a list of the top 10 players at every position on the field. And they started with running backs yesterday. They did defensive tackle today. The Saints did not have a defensive tackle that was even listed, and that's not a super surprising thing. I think Brian Brzee is a nice player, but I don't think that he was going to be a top 10 player in the league at this point. But the question that I had when I saw the list were coming out, I was like, okay, Kamara had a pretty good year last year. I mean, Alvin Kamara last year ran for a career-high 950 yards. His previous high was 932 back in the COVID year of 2020. And I think Kamara could have potentially run for 1,000 this past year if they wanted to do that. If they wanted to push the envelope and get those last 50 yards late in the season, they probably could have. But no use in doing that because the season was pretty well cashed at that point. And before you say, well, he ran for 950, but it's a 17-game season. Well, Kamara missed 3 games last year when he was trying to run through broken ribs at one point. And finally, they said, okay, you need to take a seat for a little bit. And he did. But he ran for 950 yards in just 14 games last year. So I'm going, okay, I know he's going to his age 30 season, but is he a top 10 running back in the league? And so it starts where you know it's going to start with Saquon Barkley. Derrick Henry still at number 2 at age 31. Jahmyr Gibbs has ascended up to number 3 at this point for a great Detroit team. Then you've got Bijan Robinson in the Saints division at number 4 with Atlanta. Christian McCaffrey slipped a little bit. Obviously dealt with a lot of injuries last year. So he's number 5. Josh Jacobs, number 6 for Green Bay. Jonathan Taylor, number 7. So you're running out of time for Kamara here. James Cook with Buffalo, age 25 season, is number 8 on the list. Joe Mixon from the Houston Texans is number 9 on the list. And Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints is number 10 on the list after not being ranked last year. A premier back in our rankings for years, Kamara fell to honorable mention last year after a few down seasons, though some evaluators see a slight decline. Kamara fought his way back to the top 10 thanks to 1,500 scrimmage yards last year. He appeared on nearly 60% of the voting ballots, but none in the top 6. The quote from an NFL offensive coach said, "Some of the elite traits are still there. He didn't have much of an offensive line or a supporting cast last year, but he can still take a screen for big yardage and still has great contact balance." And I think that's the thing with Kamara that has endured throughout his 20s. You're always going to potentially lose a step as you get to this point in your career. Maybe not be quite as elusive, not as shifty as you were when you were 23, 24 years old. But what Kamara has maintained to me is the ability to stay balanced, whether that's taking a hit, whether that's on a cut where he gets bumped, whether that's the patience that he shows in the open field to allow his blockers to go and then his stop and start, change of direction. The balance to me is what has separated him and has maintained throughout his time as a New Orleans Saints running back. And so I think it's reasonable to suggest he's a top 10 back in the sport. You're looking at a guy who doesn't, who has never been, I mentioned a 1,000-yard back, but has been such a vital catch and run player in his career. I mean, look at some of these yardage totals, and I realize that I'm going back to his rookie year for this, but 826 yards receiving when he was the AP Rookie of the Year as in 2017. And then 709 in 2018, and then 756 in 2020. And even the last couple of years, which he's missed a little bit of time, and those say he's taken a step back, 490 receiving yards 3 years ago, 466 2 years ago, and then this past season, he caught 68 balls for 543 yards. That's 8 yards per catch for Alvin Kamara. And I think the discussion with Kamara, and we had it all of the early season last year with would you pay him, would you not? I would not have. And it has nothing to do with Alvin Kamara as a player or as a professional. It has everything to do with where the Saints are and with what his age is. But they already made that decision. So that's not for debate anymore. He's back. 2-year deal. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to get a reliable player who's generally on the field. He's missed more time over the last 5 years than he did early. But he's generally on the field. He's tough as nails. He's a true pro. He wants to be in New Orleans. He can still catch the ball and run with it. And now it's less about him competing for, Offensive Player of the Year, him being a top 10 running back, him getting 1,000 yards, him helping the Saints win the Super Bowl, which it was in his early years. It's more about him teaching these young running backs, whether that's Kendre Miller or Devin Neal, and helping Tyler Shuck, a new quarterback, ease into his role as the number one signal caller. That's with running the ball. That's with pass protection. That's with being an emergency valve out of the backfield that Shuck can feel comfortable checking it down to and can still produce once he gets those opportunities. And I think he is a quality guy to have in that spot for that role. This is a guy that made 5 straight Pro Bowls to start his career. He was the Offensive Rookie of the Year, Pro Bowl, then was a second-team AP All-Pro in 2020, and he made a Pro Bowl in 2021. He has not the last 3 years, but he's still productive. He's still a great teammate, and he's a guy you want in the locker room. I just may not have extended to that point. And the question I was asking myself today is, okay, where does Kamara rank in the modern era of the Saints, the last 25 years? Say this quarter century. You're seeing a lot of quarter century lists being, tossed out there. And I would not put Kamara in Drew Brees category. And like Jari Evans, as far as accomplishments is more accomplished than Alvin Kamara. Cam Jordan has been tremendous and is likely a Hall of Fame player, which I don't think to this point Kamara is. And then you've got this like group of guys, whether it's Michael Thomas for the crazy start he had to his career, Demario Davis for the incredible productivity and longevity, Marcus Colston for being the best receiver productivity-wise in the Saints' history, Terran Armstead, Ryan Ramczyk, Carl Nix, Jonathan Vilma. Like, that's the company that Kamara keeps. And I think if you start to chop it up, he's somewhere, 5 to 9 of the best Saints in this golden era of the last 25 years. And I realize the golden era only goes 20 years, but I think it's a round number if you can cut it off at 2000. That doesn't include Willie Roaf, and it doesn't include Ricky Jackson. It doesn't include Morton Anderson. Doesn't include Archie Manning. But in this era of Saints football, the last 25 years, he's a top 5 or 6 player, and I think he's the greatest running back in the history of the franchise. Now, Mark Ingram's going to have more yards, and Deuce is beloved for good reason in New Orleans, but me watching Kamara, and maybe it's just because it was the perfect offense for him, where it was not necessarily a ground and pound offense like Deuce was in, and he had help from Ingram, who was running between the tackles, and he was just the guy making the flashy plays on the perimeter, and maybe that skewed my opinion a little bit, but I just found him to be an exceptionally versatile and productive back, and one that I would love to take. Maybe you don't take it if you're trying to run the old Cowboys offense with Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and just the best offensive line and pound it forward. But if you're talking about the Saints who were spreading the field, who were creating some space, who had a quarterback that was very, very willing to check it down in Drew Brees, who knew he was going to get 6 yards for sure and maybe 60 from Kamara, that's a valuable dude to have. And it was a perfect fit at the perfect time. And I think that his career in New Orleans is going to be remembered very, 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 very fondly when that comes to an end, probably in 2 more years. But it's a different role for him now for the next 2 years. It's not try to win Offensive Player of the Year. It's, okay, be a mentor, be productive, but be a comfort blanket for Tyler Shuck as he eases into his role as the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. So very cool that Alvin Kamara is still thought of in league circles as a top 10 back in the league. You're going to need him to be that with the money that you're paying him. And there are people that think he certainly can be. So Alvin Kamara thought of as the number 10 running back in the National Football League by the folks that ESPN.com spoke with. I don't disagree with that. So that's our Saints discussion for the first hour today. We'll get to Sharief Ishak in hour number 2. If you're looking for Saints coverage, you can always find it. Hunt on Saints. We're easing closer and closer to training camp. If you're looking for that Saints news, LouisianaSports.net has got you covered as well. So let's move forward. Glenn West talking Tigers when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
At Luba Workers' Comp, our journey began over 30 years ago with a simple belief: our clients come first.
At Luba, our business has always been focused on people, not policies.
Through every success and challenge, we've continued to grow because we've stayed true to our values, committed to providing you with genuine dependability.
Because your well-being is more than a priority. It's our purpose.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Brack, your #1 park system in the nation.
ED, low T, or simply seeking to optimize your health and performance? Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness offers a range of discreet services to address your specific needs. We empower men to reclaim their health and confidence. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like Vans Custom, Mercedes-Benz Vans.
These ice cubes could have been a thankless bed for an all-you-can-eat salad bar. But instead, they cradle and cool the crisp, refreshing Dos Equis. Nicely done, ice cubes.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Let's head on back out to the Jim's Fire and Sightlines where we find our guy Glenn West, senior writer over at Go 24/7, all your team coverage, recruiting coverage, football, basketball, baseball. They got you covered over there at Go 24/7. Glenn joins us now. Glenn, how we doing?
Good, Hunt. Just trying to catch up on some sleep after a little Puerto Rico trip last week, but we're okay.
Survived?
I survived. I do have one little funny story, I guess, that happened out there that's I guess radio appropriate. I went surfing for the first time last week with 7 or 8 different buddies of mine, and arrived to the surf shop, and of course none of the boards are long enough for me, so they give me a paddle board, and I was trying to surf with a paddle board the whole time, and so I was able to get up a couple times towards the end, but man, those things are long and bulky and just really hard to navigate.
Surf one, a never surfed before 6'10" guy out there trying to shred some waves. I can imagine that was a bit of a struggle, but I'm glad you made it. Glad you're back, and it's time now to start kind of looking toward football a little bit. LSU just announced Garrett Nussmeier, Whit Weeks, and Chris Hilton will be the attendees in Atlanta for SEC Football Media Days. Is that surprising in any way to you?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, and obviously Nuss was there last year, and so he's the quarterback and the guy that I think the leader of this team, and I think the media is really going to love, kind of the outside media is really going to love getting to talk with Whit Weeks. I mean, the guy just has a smile on his face 24/7 when talking about football, and should be a really good quote for a lot of guys outside of just the LSU media. And then, look, I think the one that really stood out to me, though, is Chris Hilton. I mean, this is a guy who's been through a lot in his career, had to overcome a lot of injuries to get to this point. And Brian Kelly doesn't just take anybody on these trips to Atlanta. I mean, he takes well-respected voices out there for these media days, and Chris Hilton has definitely gotten himself to a point here where he's one of the more respected leaders and one of the older players in this program. So really excited to see what Chris has to say out there, and just kind of the 5-year journey that he's been on to get to this point.
Where do you think he fits in on this receiving core right now?
I don't think that there is another receiver that has the natural chemistry that Garrett Nussmeier has with Chris Hilton. Like they took him a little while just because he was injured for so much of the year, but you really saw it towards the end of the season there in that Oklahoma game and in that Baylor game, just what his presence does on the field for Nussmeier in that offense. And so I think if he's able to stay healthy this year, and I know that's been a big if so far in his career, he could really have a big season for LSU, maybe an unexpected season for a lot of people. And I think he's got a lot of talent to be a real, not just a deep vertical threat guy, but a guy who can be a playmaker in the middle of the field and pick up some big yards after the catch. I think he's due for a really nice season if he's able to stay healthy.
Whit Weeks has had an interesting 2 years at LSU, and now obviously coming off an injury for year 3, but they expect him to be a full go as of right now, well before the start of camp. Where do you fit the puzzle pieces between Perkins, Weeks, Keys, and whoever you may think is vying for time at linebacker?
Yeah, I think you'll probably see a lot of Witt and West playing together. I think you'll see a lot of Witt and Devon Keys playing together. I think the bigger question for me with Perkins is just going to be how much does LSU want to experiment with, that nickel spot this year, bringing a guy like Tamarcus Cooley in from NC State. Is he a more natural deep safety, or do they think he can play closer to the line of scrimmage at one of those nickel safety spots? And I think that's going to be kind of the question mark there, is how much does Cooley play on the outside in that nickel role, and how much do they want Perkins on the field in that star role? Like I don't see them going back to a scenario where Perkins is playing in the box. Maybe you put him out there for a snap or two every once in a while, but his primary position is going to have to be as an off-ball linebacker and in that star role. And so I think the bigger question is, does LSU see Cooley also in that role, and just kind of how does that dynamic work? Or do they think Perkins can be there full time and be a kind of an every down player at that star position?
Better chance for Nussmeier. He runs the ball significantly more than he did last year, or cuts significantly down on the interceptions?
I think he runs the ball a lot more. I think that, look, the turnovers with him are going to be kind of embedded into his game a little bit. I don't expect him to go from like 12 to 4 interceptions or anything like that. I think he still will throw some, but hopefully not as many. I think that the running aspect here is something that maybe can help take away some of those turnovers. Maybe it'll be a situation where he sees something where he would maybe last year try to force it, and then maybe he'll try to run the ball and try to pick up some yards. And I think that's all things that he has to kind of have on his mind here this offseason as he's developing. But I mean, the quote that we got from him at the Manning Passing Academy I guess 2 weeks ago now, was really the thing that stood out to me the most that we've heard from him this summer, and that's been just how much he's worked on his body, how much he feels like he will be more comfortable taking off in those opportunities when they do present themselves. And so I think for him, it's just going to be about knowing when to balance that out, and when to take the deep shots, and when to if a running lane opens, when to take it, and sliding and all that stuff. So I would say probably more leaning into the running game aspect of his overall execution as a quarterback is going to help him tremendously this year.
Last one on the football side of things. Your thoughts on where the media picks LSU and when they rank them 1 to 16?
I would imagine they're in that top 5, 6 range. I don't know that they'll get as high as top 3, top 2, but everything that I've read this offseason, the national media seems pretty high on the talent that LSU has. I think it's just a question of how much do they think that that's going to translate to wins in the SEC. And so I would imagine they're in the top 5, 6, but saying that they were going to be ahead of Georgia or Texas or maybe even a Tennessee or an Alabama or something like that, I think that's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but certainly right there in that next tier of teams outside of the top 2 or 3 that are going to really go into the season with high expectations of winning the entire SEC.
Glenn West, our guest, senior writer over at GOAT 24/7. Let's switch over briefly to baseball here as the draft approaches. We won't talk to you again until we have seen the conclusion of the Major League Baseball draft. So your thoughts on a couple of the Tigers who are coming back to the team or leaving to go to the draft, not necessarily the high school and portal guys. Ethan Fry, Chase Shores, Zach Cowan. We talked about it last week, but any change in your thoughts on that?
Not really. I think Shores is probably a goner. I think that's a really easy decision there. I think probably the one that on the pitching side that you maybe have that conversation with about returning is Zach Cowan. I think they can get Zach Cowan back, that he can come in and be a starter for LSU next year, or just continue to pitch in the same role that he did. I mean, he's been a very valuable pitcher, obviously, last year for what he was able to do for him. But you get Zach Cowan back, I think you feel a lot better about the pitching staff and the returning core that you have with that group. On the position player side, I keep going back and forth on Ethan Fry. I think there's a big part of him that would probably love to come back for next year and be a central piece to this offense and this team, and that could be ultimately what he decides. But I think he really has to weigh, like, betting on himself, like coming back and developing as a position player and as a hitter, knowing that next year you'll probably sacrifice some signing bonus money, but maybe it's better for your long-term future as in terms of getting to the big leagues. That's kind of, I think, the conversation that he's probably weighing right now. I would probably lean that he signs somewhere. Same goes with Chris Stanfield. I think you've probably seen him sign elsewhere as well. But those are kind of the two guys, I think, on the position player side that you really have to look at from a returning core as guys that maybe you potentially could get back, but probably are going to lose.
Connor Ware, any thoughts there?
Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't really thought about Connor. Yeah, I think they can get him back. I mean, I just don't know where his draft stock is. I mean, he's not anywhere in that top kind of 200 range that I've seen, but you don't really have to be that. I mean, like if he's drafted somewhere in the first 10 rounds, it's probably a pretty strong indication that he's going to go play professional ball. But he's somebody that, look, we talked about a lot last fall and into the spring as one of their best arms. He looked like one of the guys that they were going to go to in those situations, and it just didn't really translate as well in the SEC, and certainly in the postseason there just weren't many opportunities for him. But if he does come back, he can certainly work on his control and his command and be a really valuable left-handed arm. But I think the fact that they've gone in and they've gotten 3 transfer portal arms that are all lefties gives you a little bit of an indication that they're okay there if they do lose him.
I got to ask this question. I'll toss it to you and see what your thoughts are. Somebody said, is there any chance that if Fry and Stanfield leave, that Ashton Larson comes back? I said, well, I mean, that's literally possible. I know you don't have to go anywhere. You can come on back. I don't know what the feeling would be from LSU or if he would have any interest in that, but I'll toss it to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's certainly, just because you enter the portal doesn't mean you can't come back from the portal. I don't think that's happened with baseball here in recent years, but this is certainly a new age that we live in. And I think, look, the big thing here for anybody that LSU brings in to work at that other outfield spot, they're just going to have to find a guy that, can swing the bat for average, guy that maybe hopefully has some SEC experience, or even if he doesn't, somebody that can just hold his own out there in the outfield. You've got a really strong core with Curiel and Brown next year. Just somebody that can make the plays, be a routine player, real team player, I should say. That's what they really are going to be looking for with this other outfield spot. And maybe it's somebody that's still in the portal. Maybe it's one of these freshmen that they get on campus next year. But there's certainly some options, I think, to still work out after the draft is over.
He's Glenn West, senior editor at Go 24/7. Glad you made it back stateside, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, Hunt. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's Glenn West. All your team coverage, baseball, basketball, football, and recruiting. They got you handled over there at Go 24/7. I'm going to go through all of the players that are ranked in ESPN's most recent, the last top 250 from a baseball scouting perspective. We'll do that at the top of hour number 2, so 16 minutes from right now. I'll get into kind of what I think about some of the high school guys, more so what ESPN thinks about them. Maybe on Friday I dive more deeply into what I actually think is going to happen. I'm still doing a little bit of digging on a couple angles for that perspective, but I want to start that discussion here this week because I think it's pretty relevant. And then one of the guys I asked Glenn West about there in that segment is Connor Ware and what could be his fate this weekend and potentially next year. I'll kind of tell you what I think about that when we come back to close out hour number 1 next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Every single model in the line, IHA top safety pick. All of them. Entry model, highest end. SUV, down to the sedan. All top safety picks. You know, when you get behind the wheel of a Genesis, you are getting behind the wheel of one of the safest cars on the road. And the process to get there couldn't be easier. They got a wonderful staff, an incredible website that's got the entire lot right there at the click of a button. But go by and see them, Airline at Piku. Chat with one of those brand ambassadors. You're going to feel like a guest, not a customer. You're not going to be taken advantage of or pressured or upsold. They're just going to help you get behind the wheel of a Genesis, because the odds are most of you have not been behind the wheel of a Genesis. Let's change that. Go see them, Airline at Piku, across from Women's Hospital. Visit them online, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You gotta believe in a dream. Believe. You gotta believe in a dream. Believe. You gotta believe. My whole team on wild.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
These are the luckiest ice cubes in the world. They could have been a thankless bed for an all-you-can-eat salad bar. But instead, they've been called upon to cradle and cool a crisp, refreshing Dos Equis. Looks like the lucky just got luckier. Dos Equis.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac, our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
At Luba Workers Comp, our journey began over 30 years ago with a simple belief: our clients come first.
At Luba, our business has always been focused on people, not policies.
Through every success and challenge, we've continued to grow because we've stayed true to our values, committed to providing you with genuine dependability.
Because your well-being is more than a priority. It's our purpose.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, closing down hour number one here, I wanted to talk about Connor Ware. Probably not a guy that a lot of LSU fans are thinking a lot about at this point, because you didn't see him in the postseason. And because his year, by the standards that we talked him up, and I'm very, very, very much included in that, he didn't live up to that. And that's an easy guy to kind of bury out of your mind as draft time comes. But I want to paint the whole picture here, because Connor Ware did not allow an earned run against LSU in the fall in the inter squads. And I went back and found a tweet from David Seifert, who's D1 Baseball's like prospect guy. And he was at LSU ULL in the fall scrimmage that the Tigers and Cajuns played. And he tweeted out like Connor Ware dominating, working 91, 94, likely starter for the Tigers. Like that's what he saw in the fall from Connor Ware. And this is also difficult to remember. His first 2 outings were against Southern and then the start at Dallas Baptist. And in those 2 outings, he combined to throw 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts, and 1 walk. 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 7 innings, 1 run in those 2 outings. And that looked like, statistically, the guy that I saw in the fall, the guy that the staff saw in the fall, the guy that scouts saw in the fall. And then, after those 2 outings, he threw 12 2/3 innings. And he issued 17 walks. I mean, that's just an astronomical number. And the end of the road for Connor Ware this season was giving him the start in the first game, which was a Thursday at South Carolina in the finale. And he walked 4 guys and hit another one in 1 inning. And at that point, and I wrote this at LouisianaSports.net, I said it on the show, like, you're out of runway at that point. Can't go to you. And they didn't. They didn't go to him once in the postseason. They found their guy from the left side that was going to be Williams. Primo got up a few times and was going to be available as well, and you were going to go to Shores, and you were going to go to Cowan, and you were going to go to Evans if you needed to, but you weren't going to go down the line far enough to get to a guy that was not throwing strikes. But Connor Ware is still left-handed. He's still 6'4". He's still 220 pounds. He can still throw 93, 94 miles an hour, and he still has 4 pitches. And he still pitched 2 years in junior college, and both years his ERA was under 2. And he still threw the ball great in the fall last year against LSU. So I'm not here to tell you that Connor Ware is just toast. Now, I think it's probably a little bit more likely than not that he gets drafted somewhere in the 6th, 8th round and gets a signing bonus, somewhere in the neighborhood of $240,000 and goes. Like that's what I think is going to happen. But if he does get bypassed or does set a number that is higher than that and does want to come back and try to fight for a spot on the mound on this LSU roster that he knows what they're capable of. He was there in Omaha. He knows what that can be like to pitch on that mound. Maybe he wants to come back and try it. And I would not rule it out that he becomes a starting pitcher on next year's roster. I would not rule it out that he becomes a high-leverage reliever on next year's roster. Again, I think it's more likely than not he signs. But in the discussions that I've had, it sounds like that's going to be a 50-50 proposition. And he does have one soundboard to go off of it. Not a lot of folks have in this position. His brother, Bryson, was a really good player at Auburn and is in the Phillies minor league system right now. So Connor knows what playing in the SEC is like from a lifestyle perspective, and he knows what the minor leagues are like because his brother, Bryson's doing it right now. And he can weigh that in addition to the money. I don't know what LSU is prepared to do for him NIL-wise. I know that LSU baseball does not have a lot of revenue-sharing dollars that they can just dole out. They're in that piece of the pie with everybody except football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. So you're not going to get rich being in Connor Ware's position coming back to LSU baseball. But he's probably not going to get rich wherever he's fielding phone calls in the draft. I think this is one to watch if you're an LSU fan. I think there's more in Connor Ware's tank. I think he'll be a better pitcher next year than he was this past year. Question is that in high A Rochester or is that in the Southeastern Conference? Because you don't have to teach Connor Ware to strengthen his arm and throw 4 miles an hour harder. You don't have to teach Connor Ware to throw a third pitch. You don't have to teach Connor Ware to spin a breaking ball. He can do all of those things already. He didn't throw it over the plate enough. It's the same thing with William Schmidt. Schmidt's younger. But there's a lot of potential in those arms. Now, LSU is guarded against losing Ware because they went and got left-hander from Oregon, left-hander from North Dakota State, left-hander from Tennessee, bring Primo back. Got a couple in your class. You hope to get to campus. You may or may not. We'll talk about that next. But if they bring Connor Ware back, I think he's got a chance to be a factor in some capacity on the mound for LSU, and I'll be paying attention to that one for sure. So that's my thought. I've got a more in-depth piece up at louisianasports.net right now that kind of details what that decision may look like. So if you want to read that for free, you can certainly go over and check that out at louisianasports.net. 17 guys in LSU's baseball signing class. 17. I'll tell you in the next segment after SportsCenter how many of those 17s are ranked in the ESPN's latest and greatest and last top 250, and which ones could be significant draft risks. We're going to start easing into that the back half of this week on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
At Atmos Energy, our smart choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Flight by Yingling is raising the bar by crafting the next generation of light beer. With only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Flight by Yingling. Raise the bar.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
These are the luckiest ice cubes in the world. They could have been a thankless bed for an all-you-can-eat salad bar. But instead, they've been called upon to cradle and cool a crisp, refreshing Dos Equis. Huh. Looks like the lucky just got luckier. Dos Equis.
At Sunshine, we know what you see when you look at your land. Where others may see dirt, you see the foundation you've built your life on. This, it's hallowed ground. It's past, present, and future. We're proud to provide quality John Deere equipment to help you maintain the land you love. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Luba Workers Comp, our journey began over 30 years ago with a simple belief: our clients come first.
At Luba, our business has always been focused on people, not policies.
Through every success and challenge, we've continued to grow because we've stayed true to our values, committed to providing you with genuine dependability.
Because your well-being is more than a priority. It's our purpose.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
ED, low T, or simply seeking to optimize your health and performance? Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness offers a range of discreet services to address your specific needs. We empower men to reclaim their health and confidence. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
is SportsCenter.
I'm Doug Brown. ESPN's Shams Charania reports Mavericks forward Anthony Davis is now recovering from a procedure for a detached retina. After getting traded to Dallas in February, Davis played only 11 games for the Mavericks, including 2 play-in games. He expects to be ready for training camp. The offseason has already featured multiple multi-team trades, including that 7-team deal involving Kevin Durant. How do these complicated trades happen? ESPN's Bobby Marks.
July 1 starts the new calendar year, and most of these deals are agreed upon by 2 weeks before, and you basically have that window there to basically expand it however you want to.
Bobby Marks on game night. Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins signed with Atlanta last year, and weeks later, the Falcons took quarterback Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th pick in the draft. Cousins says on the Netflix series Quarterback that if he had known that would happen, he might have re-signed with the Minnesota Vikings.
Hey, it's Michelle Smallman, and coming up Wednesday, Kirk Cousins says he felt misled after the Falcons drafted Michael Penix Jr. I'll tell you why the only person he has to blame is himself. It's on Sportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Sharief Ishak, 30 minutes from right now talking Saints, and we will get into LSU's 3 invitees to SEC Football Media Days coming up in 15 minutes. All right, let me throw the cards down on the table here real quick. This is the most difficult segment of radio in terms of effective communication that I do all year. And I'll tell you why. Because let's call it 18,000 LSU fans that were in Omaha, Nebraska, that paid good money to go up and watch LSU in the College World Series win a national championship. Call it 18,000 that did that. I would guess 200 of the 18,000, and that may be generous, have ever heard of any of the people I'm about to read off to you on this list. They're LSU's high school baseball signees. So I'm talking to most of you, 99.9% of you, who have never heard of any of these people. So when I tell you Brady Ebell, you don't know any difference between Quentin Young or Mason Braun. Like, you don't know who any of those people are. And my job here is to effectively communicate to you who are driving or working out or running or, trying to go to sleep, or at work. Try to communicate effectively a message about a list that's not 2 or 3 people long, that's 17 people long, and you've never heard of any of them. And the point of this discussion, and I want to be clear, is not to give you a perfect read on all 17 of these guys so that you can turn around and go, okay, I got this whole signing class figured out. If you want to do that, you can listen to this 6 times and take notes and get through that, and that's awesome. I don't think you're going to. So the point of this exercise is to convey to you the volatility of this signing class. Because usually at LSU, which is different than Stanford, which is different than Indiana, which is different than Miami, at LSU, you've usually got like 2 guys in a signing class that have no chance to get to campus whatsoever. These are the Connor Griffins of the world that are the potential 8th pick in the draft or 4th pick in the draft. They're going to sign for $6 million. Like, there's usually a few of those. And then there are usually a couple guys from Barb, player from Catholic, 2 from Ouachita Christian, and a couple Jesuit kids from the Catholic League that are just going to end up at LSU. They're not going to be a significant draft risk. Usually like half the class kind of looks like that, right? So then you boil down the class, and there's 4 or 5 guys that you really got to look at that could go either way. They're not slam dunk, first round high draft choices. They're not way down the list. They're right there in the meat. And the meat of this thing is somewhere in the neighborhood of the 2nd to the 6th round. And you've got to identify those guys and go, okay, these are the ones you got to have a high hit ratio on. Because Jay Johnson says all the time, like, you want to go to Omaha, you want to win, you better have Major League Baseball players. And LSU, since Jay Johnson has gotten here, has had Major League Baseball players. They've also signed some Major League Baseball players who didn't come here. But that's part of going to get Major League Baseball players. You're going to end up losing them. And it's awesome to have Cade Beloso and Gavin Dugas and Alex Milazzo, and then from this past team, Michael Braswell. Like, those guys are not going to play for the Blue Jays, but they help you win college baseball games. You got to have those guys too. But the way to get this thing done is to go get pros, and the best way for LSU to do it is to go through the high school ranks. And this class has got a load of dudes who are 50-50 or 60-40 or 65-35, but they're in the gray area. And they've all got different life situations and different advisors and different communication methods with Jay Johnson and different promises that have been made in recruiting and different attitudes towards college. And you gotta win some of these battles. So let me paint this picture for you. There are 17 guys in the signing class. This is not my evaluation. Clearly, this is ESPN.com and Kylie McDaniel and his group evaluation. In his group evaluation, there are 13 of LSU's 17 recruits that are in top 250 prospects in this draft. That's not high school. That's including all the college guys, too. That is a massively high number. And the highest one is Jaden Foskey at 31. So you don't have any in the top 30, which is technically the first round. Now, you've got a couple more picks there, and you've got a sandwich round. And yes, 31 is technically a first-round pick by my definition. But none of them are like 6th. And between 31 and 150, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys between 31 and 150. And for reference, the signing bonus at 150 is roughly $475,000. So that's so many guys who are going to be staring down the barrel of a mid to high 6-figure total and maybe a low 7-figure total, which, look, for the guy talking on the radio, low 7 figures sounds pretty good. But these guys have massive aspirations. And sometimes they stare down those fat checks like Chase Shores did, like William Schmidt did, like Alex Bregman did, like Kevin Gaussman did. And they come to LSU in hopes to elevate that. Because if you can go, 20th, now you're talking about $4 million. You go 85th, 60 picks later, $935K. So there's a group here at the top that is so volatile on what their number is, when they get a phone call, what organizations think of them, and how they value themselves. So I'll give you a couple of names here, and I promise on either Thursday or Friday, I'll make my determination once I feel like I've gotten enough information. This is ESPN's evaluation, not my opinion of what's going to happen. I'll give you my predictions. I'm going to write a big piece up at LouisianaSports.net. It'll be free for you to read, and y'all can go dive into that, and you can have it handy when the draft starts on Sunday. But just to give you some thoughts on what Kylie McDaniel and ESPN think. Jaden Foskey is a really good athlete, infielder, outfielder from Illinois, 6'3". They got him ranked 31st. That's a $3 million valuation. That's a guy that at $3 million going to have a hard time luring him to campus. Quentin Young is probably the least likely guy to get to campus by most thoughts. He is related to Delman Young and Dimitri Young. He's their nephew. He's a great athlete, just a 6'5" horse of a dude from California. They've got him 36. Briggs McKenzie's a left-handed pitcher from North Carolina. They've got him at 73. Dean Moss, I'm very intrigued by. I'll talk about him a lot later in the week, but he's a guy that is more on the profile of the Derek Curiel because he doesn't hit for a ton of power. He has some power, but he's more of a contact hitter. He's from California, goes to IMG. They got him ranked 74th. He's a left-handed bat that I really like. Miguel Syme is a flame-throwing right-hander. They've got 85th. Marcos Paz is a 6'2 right-hander from Texas. They got him ranked 108th. Brady Ebel is a really good bat from the infield that's from California. $661,000 slot at 115. Reagan Ricken is a right-handed pitcher who's 6'5 from California. You've got one Louisiana product in this entire list of 13 players that I'm going through on this ESPN list, and that is William Patrick, who's an outfielder from St. Fred's up in Funro. That's my high school's biggest rival. But William Patrick is thought of as a really good player, number 145 on this list. A name you'll probably remember pretty easily, River Hamilton, is a right-handed pitcher who throws really hard from the state of Oregon. They've got him at 184. Got a catcher in this class in Landon Hodge, who's 215. Mason Braun, he's from South Bend, Indiana. He's a shorter left-handed hitting first baseman who's 231. And then Zion Theopolis is a right-hander from Ohio who's 241. Again, you're not supposed to remember all those names, but the point of this is that as you start to pay attention to this draft and maybe for you paying attention to this draft, just diving into the perfect game profiles and checking out all the Baseball America stuff and reading Kyle McDaniel stuff and watching every pick of the draft and monitoring it on Twitter. And maybe you're all in on that. Maybe you're paying attention to the draft is, let me just hear what Hunt has to say. Maybe you're paying attention to the draft is, well, when it's over, just let me know who didn't get drafted. And none of that's the wrong way to approach it. That there are a lot of different ways to look at the roster composition. But to me, this is a fascinating time of year to look into how LSU's roster is going to look next year. And what's interesting is it's difficult to truly know what you need in the transfer portal before you know what high school kids you're going to get to campus. Because if you can get Dean Moss to campus, that really makes you feel a little bit better about Ethan Fry moving on because you feel like Moss can potentially step in and start in the outfield. If you don't get Briggs McKenzie in this class, who's your best left-handed pitcher in the high school ranks, good thing you went to the transfer portal. What is Connor Ware doing? I don't know. You look at first base, which is potentially open on this LSU team. Can Mason Braun fill that spot? You thought that Costello was going to be that guy. Well, he jumped in the transfer portal. Incidentally, he's crushing the ball in summer ball right now. But he moved on. So there's just a lot of moving parts. I find it fascinating. I'm more fascinated by it than probably most of you. But the point of this segment was not for you to learn all these guys' names. The point is for you to know that there are probably two guys at the top that are less likely than the rest to get to campus in Foskey and Young. But there are then 9 or 10 guys, not 3 or 4, that you're looking at going, if you could get 6 of these, what a coup. If you only get 2, man, your high school class has gotten ripped apart. And that's what you're going to be looking at on Sunday in the first round, in the second round, but then more so as you get into the back end of things on Monday is the big day. And so I'm going to be a hardworking dude on Monday. That's going to be 1, our first day of SEC Media Days, 2, LSU Day at SEC Media Days, 3, the meat of the draft for this signing class. So probably not going to be able to meet the folks out at the local watering hole that day. We'll maybe get to that later in the week, but it's going to be a heavy workload on Monday, dealing with all the fun stuff we get to do in Atlanta for the show and for the site, and then what happens in the Major League Baseball draft, which incidentally is in Atlanta. So we'll do all of that next week, but that's kind of a intro to what you're looking at with this LSU baseball high school class. All right, when we come back, LSU's bringing 3 guys to Media Days next week, as I just mentioned. We'll talk about them coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac. Our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
Baton Rouge's home for real rock. It's Eagle 98.1. Foo Fighters. Led Zeppelin. AC/DC. Pearl Jam. And the flagship home for LSU sports. Take us anywhere with the Eagle 98.1 app. Eagle 98.1 is the rock station.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
At Luba Workers Comp, our journey began over 30 years ago with a simple belief. Our clients come first.
At Luba, our business has always been focused on people, not policies.
Through every success and challenge, we've continued to grow because we've stayed true to our values, committed to providing you with genuine dependability.
Because your well-being is more than a priority. It's our purpose.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Ochsner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Man, age is just a number. Don't let it dictate how you feel. Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness has anti-aging services that can help you look and feel your best. Visit yourgoodwood.com and discover a renewed sense of vitality.
These are the luckiest ice cubes in the world. They could have been a thankless bed for an all-you-can-eat salad bar, but instead, they've been called upon to cradle and cool a crisp, refreshing Dos Equis. Huh. Looks like the lucky just got luckier. Dos Equis.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
SEC Media Days coming up next week. We'll be in Atlanta, as we've told you numerous times. We will be there Monday through Thursday, and LSU will help kick things off on Monday. So that's going to be a busy day, as I just mentioned. And we found out today who LSU is bringing to SEC Media Days and the rest of the attendees from the other 15 member schools. LSU is going to bring Garrett Nussmeier, Whit Weeks, and Chris Hilton Jr. to the event. I think this makes a ton of sense. Clearly, you're going to bring Garrett Nussmeier. He threw for 4,000 yards last year, the second highest total in the history of LSU football. He is the top returning passer in all of college football, and he's a guy that's on some short Heisman lists. He's going to be there. That's just a no-brainer there as a returning starting quarterback. Whit Weeks finished second in the SEC in tackles last year. Just a monster year for him in terms of his productivity. He really took the next step from like bat out of hell freshman that we saw a couple of years ago that was making a lot of plays, but then probably out of position a lot, which is why he didn't play as much as he probably should have. But he really transformed into a really productive player last year. Made some huge plays, specifically in the Arkansas game. And so he's going to be on the first team all-conference preseason list by just about everybody, and going to get some preseason All-American recognition, I would imagine, at linebacker. So Garrett Nussmeier and Whit Weeks coming with LSU. And then I think Chris Hilton Jr. Just embodies so much good about college football because he was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. He signed in a loaded wide receiver class that included Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, and he just hasn't been able to put it all together to get to the field. And he's not a guy where you're like, oh, man, they must have misevaluated that guy, because every time he gets on the field, he catches a 50-yard pass. It's uncanny how much he's been used down the field and how much success he's had in his very, very limited time on the field. But you know that Garrett Nussmeier has a good rapport with him. You know that he's got elite-level speed. And you know that he wants to be at LSU because he's had every opportunity to leave both in the transfer portal and to go to try his hand at the professional ranks, and he continues to stay at LSU for a 5th season. So that's just a story of perseverance, a story of a Louisiana kid that loves LSU, and a story of a guy who a lot of people think could have a breakout year this year in Baton Rouge. And I don't know that I'm going to peg anybody on this receiving core, not Berrien Brown, not Nick Anderson, not Aaron Anderson, not Chris Hilton. Like, I don't know if I'm going to pick anybody to go for 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. I feel like there's enough talent, and then the tight ends are going to take some balls as well, that it just doesn't feel to me like you're going to have a true number one wide receiver on this team. It's just going to be a balanced passing attack that spreads the ball out, and you've got a veteran quarterback who's very comfortable doing that. But in doing that, I think he is going to find Chris Hilton a good bit because they've just had such a good rapport over the last couple of years when Hilton's been at practice or I guess I should say, on the field. So I think these three make a ton of sense. I think they'll be great representatives of LSU, and I think that they'll do Brian Kelly and his program very, very proud. As we look around at other schools and who they're bringing, Alabama will not be bringing Ty Simpson, will not be bringing a quarterback at all. They'll bring Caden Proctor, a big offensive lineman who's got an interesting story because he transferred to Iowa and went back. But Deontay Lawson, Tim Keenan will also be there. Arkansas will bring Taylon Green, its quarterback. Auburn will bring Jackson Arnold, the Oklahoma transfer, who's their projected starting quarterback. So he'll be there. DJ Lagway, just a sophomore, will be at SEC Media Days for Florida. Georgia will bring Gunnar Stockton, who is the projected quarterback there. He played a little bit in the SEC championship game and then in the playoff game for Georgia after Carson Beck had the arm injury. So Stockton will be there. Kentucky won't bring a quarterback. Ole Miss will bring Austin Simmons. And so we'll be talking about on Ole Miss Day what Austin Simmons did in the rain against Georgia on one drive. And it looked really good. He went down the field and they got some points. But that's really been it for Austin Simmons to this point. We all just kind of assume with Lane Kiffin at the helm that you're going to have a productive offense and a good quarterback. I think there's reason to believe that's going to be the case. But Simmons will be there. Blake Chafin coming off an injury, the graduate from Evangel. Sorry, Jacob Hester. If he weren't doing an afternoon radio show and would have heard that, I probably would have gotten a text message about it. From Evangel in Shreveport, went to Baylor, was the starter at Mississippi State in front of Michael Van Buren last year, got hurt, missed the rest of the season. Van Buren started the last 8 games. Chapin will be there at Media Days. Missouri won't bring their quarterback. Oklahoma is going to bring transfer John Mateer, who comes over with his offensive coordinator from Washington State. He's a junior, and he'll be in that number for the Sooners. Lenora Sellers will be there for South Carolina. No Tennessee quarterback. Nico Iamaleava probably would have been there. Not anymore. So we'll see what the situation is at quarterback with Tennessee. I'll say this, and this will be a talking point for me in Atlanta when we start talking about the Vols. Like, after the Hendon Hooker year, where that offense looked so terrifying before he got hurt, you thought, well, is that just Heupel being a stud offensive coach, or is that Hendon Hooker shouldering the heavy lifting? And after watching what you've watched the last couple of years with Joe Milton and Nico run that offense, and it hasn't been nearly as good as it was with Hooker. I think it's evident that Hendon Hooker was shouldering a very heavy workload there. Like, I don't doubt Josh Heupel a ton. I think he's a very good offensive coach. I think his identity is very exciting, very interesting, and has been successful offensively for Tennessee, and they're certainly better under Heupel than they had been in a long time. But Hooker was the guy that made that thing go when it was going 3 years ago. So no quarterback for Tennessee. Texas will, of course, bring Arch Manning, their sophomore quarterback. Texas A&M will not bring Marcel Reed. They'll go with Will Lee, who's a DB, Armaj Reed Adams, offensive lineman, and then Torian York, a junior linebacker, I should say. And then Vanderbilt will, of course, bring Diego Pavia. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 quarterbacks of the 16 teams coming to SEC Media Days, LSU included in that number. So no, I don't know if there's any significantly newsworthy names for our market looking through there. I don't see any Louisiana kids that stand out to me that I know are from Louisiana outside of Blake Shapen at Mississippi State and Arch Manning at Texas. Arch is basically a national story, and Shapen is, at Mississippi State is going to be picked probably to finish last in the league this year. So not as star-studded a list of players as there has been in years past. I remember my last SEC Media Days was Johnny Manziel's Heisman year. After he'd won the Heisman, came back, and like the circus that created. I wasn't there for any of Tebow. Wasn't there for who else would have been incredibly noteworthy coming back? Manziel was a circus, though, when he was there, no doubt about that. And I don't see anyone besides Arch who may generate quite that much buzz. But I'm looking forward to get over to Atlanta and looking forward to bringing you all some incredible content on Monday through Thursday, both on the air during the show and also, of course, over at LouisianaSports.net. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage. That's your look at who the teams in the SEC are bringing for LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, Whit Weeks, and Chris Hilton. We'll step aside, come back with Sharief Ishak talking a little bit of Saints when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Captives. If you are a sizable company, you've purchased your commercial insurance traditionally for decades, you feel like you pay a ton for it, you don't have very many claims at all, if any, thinking, how do I impact the bottom line here? Well, it's probably not going to be through paying traditional premiums. The market's just not going to allow for that. But a captive could change things for you. And if you haven't been presented that option, I strongly suggest you go check out my friends at the Highland Insurance Group. Call Jonathan Carbo and say, hey, I heard Hunt talking about captives. I don't know a ton about it, but I'd like to hear about it. Jonathan would be happy to sit down and have that conversation. To me, it's the future of insurance, but I'm just an ex-insurance agent. Talk to the current one who is an actual expert and see if you're a fit. It could be a game changer for you with your risk management and on your bottom line. Check out the website, HighlandIG.com. They're statewide in Louisiana, based right here in Baton Rouge. Jonathan's been at this a long time and certainly happy to help you if you feel like a captive may be a fit for you. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Find them online at HighlandIG.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When it comes to industrial construction, River Parish Contractors can do it all. Mechanical, structural, custom fabrication, specialized welding, and turnaround services. Strategically located in between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, we have the local team with the experience and commitment to safety to manage the most complex industrial projects. Period. Here's the deal. Partnering with us means your project is delivered on time, on budget, and most important, safely. River Parish Contractors, let's get building.
Man, age is just a number. Don't let it dictate how you feel. Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness has anti-aging services that can help you look and feel your best. Visit yourgoodwood.com and discover a renewed sense of vitality.
It's not just a game, it's a religion. You've got your team colors, team swag, and now your very own website. LouisianaSports.net. Everything LSU, Saints, and Pelicans. Sports on demand. In-depth coverage by sports writing pros with continuously updated news. And with the LouisianaSports.net newsletter, you get pinged directly with top trending stories. Best of all, now and always, no paywall. It's free. LouisianaSports.net. Powered by 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Your home for Louisiana sports.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac, our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
At Sunshine, we know what you see when you look at your land. Where others may see dirt, you see the foundation you've built your life on. It's hallowed ground. It's past, present, and future. We're proud to provide quality John Deere equipment to help you maintain the land you love. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Luba Workers' Comp, our journey began over 30 years ago with a simple belief. Our clients come first.
At Luba, our business has always been.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Hope your work week is off to a good start. Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Packed a lot into the first 90 minutes, 30 more to go. We'll start that with Sharief Ishak from WDSU down in New Orleans. Talk a little Saints with Sharief. How you doing, sir?
Well, I'm just going to hang out the next 2 weeks. The next time I show myself to work will be whenever Mickey Loomis talks 2 Tuesdays from now.
Is he going to spit out his gum first?
I think he's going to keep that joke going.
Okay, good. Will he have anything interesting to say?
Probably not. He really doesn't have ever interesting to say. A lot of word salad.
Yeah, it's what a lot of press conferences are these days. And look, I'm going to get a ton of it coming up at SEC Media Days when they train these athletes for 3 weeks to go over there and say nothing in Atlanta. And sometimes that's the case unless you can soften them up a little bit with some personal questions that they can have a little bit more fun with, and the actual football stuff that can get really monotonous. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how Mickey goes. But I want to talk to you about the Saints, and we'll try not to use any coach speak here. You saw a list of the top 100 players in the National Football League that was published by Pete Prisco of CBS. The Saints did not have one. Does that surprise you, and is that correct?
Well, based off the last few years, yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised, man. I think that maybe like Alvin Kamara probably should have been one of the guys on there who continues to play through all of the nonsense of bad football and some of his nicks and injuries. He's probably the only one, I think.
What about Eric McCoy?
Yeah, Eric McCoy, maybe. I mean, but there are so many good centers in the NFL now, Hunt. I mean, so many. But when you're on a team that just is terrible the last 4 years, it's going to happen. You're not going to find yourself on any list, and I think they're fine with that. They're looking at it probably the same way they're looking at not having a primetime game this year. We didn't deserve it. We didn't win any games. We didn't win many games. We're not a good team. We just have to, show it out in the field, and that's, the way I look at it when it comes to this list. You have to go out in the field and show everyone that you're worthy of being a primetime team and worthy of being on these lists.
So who's the next Saint that's going to be on a top 100 list?
Oof, boy, that's tough. That's really tough. I'm just trying to think. I'm just digging.
Fuaga, Olave.
I think Fuaga is the guy to me. I think Fuaga is probably the the surefire one to be on it next. If Olave can stay healthy, he has a chance as well, but he just has a hard time staying healthy. And it feels like anytime he's healthy, I mean, he hasn't had the quarterback yet. And here you are again with no quarterback. And they're fighting for their quarterback right now to figure out who's going to be the starting quarterback. So maybe, but I think Fuaga is probably the easy one. I wouldn't be shocked in a few years from now Kelvin Banks will be on that list as well. I think he's going to be a pretty good offensive lineman for the Saints.
What if Chase Young has 13 sacks this year?
Then the Saints defense is going to be pretty good if he has 13 sacks, and they're going to certainly got more than they paid for. I would say that would be a great bargain if he got 13 sacks. And you're talking about a guy who has a chance to land on All-Pro if he gets to the 13 sacks and continues. Look, he had some disruptive numbers last year. Didn't have the sacks, but was in the backfield a lot. The pressures. If he has that 13 sacks and has a ton of pressures, double the pressures, and getting close to 30 pressures on top of the 13 sacks, that's close to being an All-Pro to me. And yeah, he probably ends up on a list for 2026. But yeah, I mean, those are some guys, but like Hunt, they have to show it. I mean, they really haven't shown it consistently. They've been a bad team for so long. It's just so hard to say, this guy could be, should be. But to be fair, Fuaga really maybe was probably the one who was left out. I thought he was a really good left tackle for the Saints last year. But now, he's got to prove it from the right side.
Let me stick on Chase Young there for a second because they signed him to a prove-it deal. I thought he had a nice year. I didn't say he had a great year, an all-pro year. I thought he had a nice year. And they re-signed him. I keep talking about the odds that such and such player is on the next really good Saints team. What are the odds Chase Young is on the next really good Saints team?
For the deal they got him on, I think that they keep him for the majority of the time. I think. Look, I keep telling everybody I say watch out for the Saints in 2026. So I think he's going to be on the team next year.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to have another good draft. I truly think their draft class was solid. I mean, I think next year's will be even better. So he'll be on that team, and a team that's going to have some cap space. So yeah, he'll be a part of it. He'll be part of the next up and coming good run New Orleans Saints team. So yeah, he's going to be there. I think he's going to be there. I mean, I have faith that Kellen and even Staley Kellen and Staley will turn it around on both sides of the ball. I truly have that gut feeling with time it's going to turn around. And I think 2026 is going to be a far better year than this year.
Because when we talk about the next great Saints team, the next good Saints team, everybody's going to bring up Fuaga, and everybody's going to bring up Kelvin Banks, and everybody's going to bring up Tyler Shuck and Olave and maybe Shaheed and Kool-Aid and some of those guys. But I feel like no one ever brings up Chase Young, and I'm not sure why.
It's because he's only been on for 1 year, and I think they think, well, this guy looks the part, but really hasn't given us, the stats. Because everyone, let's be fair, Hunt, everyone looks at the sack numbers whenever it comes to defensive end, and the numbers weren't there last year. But and in all fairness, it should go beyond sacks. It should go to how disruptive he was, and he was disruptive. He was good, like you said, but not great. So I think he gets a full healthy offseason. Remember, he was dealing with the neck. Mm-hmm. He was coming back with the neck injury last year during the offseason. And he finally he was ready for training. He was good for training camp. He was good. It took him a few days, but he finally got into training camp. They brought him in slowly. But I think, I just think that being a healthy guy, getting his contract, I think he's going to be motivated on this prove-it deal. I think that he is going to double some of those numbers, and I think you're going to see an inspired Chase Young. But that's probably why. It was only 1 year. It was a small sample size, but fully healthy to start the offseason. So you're probably going to hear a lot more Chase Young. And I think Brandon Staley is going to optimize him a whole lot this year.
When you look at what Staley's trying to do and shaking up the front and going to 3 down, what is Cam Jordan's role on that edge? Because obviously you've got to talk about Granderson as well.
He's a 15-year vet. He's going to be a spot defensive end. They're paying him a lot of money, so I think that they'll use him. They'll use him, and I think they'll use him sparingly. because you have to think the two guys on the edge are Chase and Carl. Those are your two guys. I think he comes in certain packages, and he'll give you what he can give you, and that's just what you get with a 15-year vet at this point in time. He's going to have to give you what he can give you. I mean, you can line him up on the inside, awesome, do it. I mean, that's why I'm interested to see how training camp is going to look as we go along. What positions does he play? What positions some of the other defensive linemen play? But Cam is the guy I want to keep a close eye on, and in his 15th season, how are they going to use him, and how often will they use him with two young guys like Chase and Carl being the mainstay at defensive end?
It just feels like on that defense, you got one guy at every level that's just the grizzled old man, the Cam Jordan. Then you got Demario Davis, then you got Tyrann Mathieu. How important are those guys, do you think, to Brandon Staley as he tries to instill a culture in the defense that's brand new to him?
You said the word there, culture. You need the culture players to help, benefit the younger players and help teach some of the younger guys what the culture is with the New Orleans Saints, what the culture is in this city, and even the new coaches like Brandon Staley, as you said. You want those guys to be the leaders, and those are the right guys you want. And they've been there, they've done that. They know the time is pretty much coming to an end, and they want to leave a lasting, impression on some of the young guys. And I mean, they have to. At this point, you have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to find a way to contribute, and you have to find a way to spread that knowledge to some of the young guys on this team so they can continue this path and continue rebuilding this franchise and making sure it's headed in the right direction. And you can't ask for three better legendary players, to make that happen.
They certainly are that, some in different uniforms, but it's been an incredible run for those guys in the National Football League. And it just feels like those guys are key locker room pieces at this point more than they are productive pieces to the defense. Maybe not so much in DeMario's case because he did have a ton of tackles last year. But New Orleans set to report to training camp here in just a handful of weeks. Sharief will be all over to enjoy some time away, and we'll catch up.
All right, Hunt. Enjoy ATL.
I will do my best to do that. That's Sharief Ishak, WDSU down in New Orleans. I was looking at the list of Media Day attendees, and I feel like my homework level really elevated before I get on that plane on Sunday because, there are so many guys on this list that I just can't tell you a ton about. And I feel like back when I went the first couple times, I just knew more about some of the guys that were going. I feel like I know Caden Proctor's story. I know Kalen Green's story. I know Jackson Arnold's story. That's 4, 5. DJ Lagway, yes. Of course, the LSU guys. I don't even know the Ole Miss guys outside of Austin Simmons that they're bringing. And I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on that roster. I don't know anything. South Carolina's not bringing one of the best pass rushers in the country in Dylan Stewart. So I don't know much about Nick Barrett or DQ Smith, who play defense for him. I've never heard of any of the 3 Tennessee attendees. That's a team that's been dripping with talent the last few years, like Arian Carter, Miles Kitzelman, and Bryson Eason. Just don't know a lot about that. Texas, I can do okay. A&M, I can do okay. And Vanderbilt's got Diego Pavia. But, I'm going to have to do a lot of homework because, as y'all know, when we sit down on Radio Row, especially me in the middle of the day, there are going to be players walking the halls. And, they're going to sit down while you're live on air, and you got to conduct an interview. And so if I could just pull up a random name, Missouri, Connor Tollison sits down and right across from me, you got to know who that is. And candidly, right now, we don't go for another 5 days to Atlanta. I don't know who Connor Tollison is. Can't tell you one thing about him. So we're going to have to do a little bit of research on these folks. But I'm glad the SEC finally sent that list out. And if you missed this a little bit earlier, LSU is going to bring Garrett Nussmeier, Chris Hilton, and Whit Weeks. So we got one more segment to go. We'll take it or leave it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. That's as good as you're going to find in the industry. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Also, 3 years complimentary maintenance, and that complimentary maintenance is valet. So if you don't want to spend your morning getting your car serviced, getting the oil done, getting the air filter changed out, wiper blades, wiper fluid, all that, don't want to spend the morning doing that, well, don't. They'll come get your car. They'll take it. They'll do it for you. You can just go on about your day with the loaner that they provide for you, and when it's done, they bring your car right back to you. You never lift a finger. Easy as that when you are a Genesis of Baton Rouge driver. If you're buying a new vehicle, you're probably going to be on the Airline Highway. So why don't you just Trickle on in right there, Airline at Piku, across from Women's Hospital. Say, hey, heard about y'all on Hunt's show. Let's chat about it. You'll be so impressed, one, with the people at Genesis Baton Rouge, and two, with the line of vehicles that they've got on the lot. Check it out online at genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
At Atmos Energy, our smart choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future.
ED, low T, or simply seeking to optimize your health and performance? Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness offers a range of discreet services to address your specific needs. We empower men to reclaim their health and confidence. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
At Luba Workers' Comp, our journey began over 30 years ago with a simple belief: our clients come first.
At Luba, our business has always been focused on people, not policies.
Through every success and challenge, we've continued to grow because we've stayed true to our values, committed to providing you with genuine dependability.
Because your well-being is more than a priority. It's our purpose.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktail. So come out for game day and let our team make you the MVP. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Enjoy a VIP experience with the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge team and the Baton Rouge Rougarou when they welcome in the Acadiana Cane Cutters this Friday, July 11th. Food from Raising Cane's and beverages will be provided. Register today under the contest page at 1045ESPN.com.
All right, just about ready to wrap things up here on a Tuesday. Chugging right along. Hope your work week is off to a good start. I've got the daunting task this weekend of handling the kiddos with no help.
Ooh.
Wife is headed to Vegas for Backstreet Boys.
Man.
That means it is just me. And let me tell you, if Friday and Saturday night go like last night did in my house, that's not going to be good.
No?
Both of them woke up 4 times apiece.
Ooh. I thought
Myers sleeps like a brick.
I was going to say, I thought he didn't wake up.
For 3 years, he has. And last night, he just kept waking up.
Is it still the spiders, or what was it?
No, that was one time. This was, we don't have a good answer for last night. He didn't even talk to me when I went in there.
Just crying.
Just like in a trance.
Maybe he was like sleep.
Keller had an excuse. He got shots yesterday, so
yeah.
you get all hyped up on that. It is what it is. But They need to sleep better than that this weekend, because if they don't, that's not going to be great for me.
No, it's not.
And then I'm going to leave.
Then you're leaving.
Then I'm going to leave for 4 days.
Yeah.
And I was just gone for 12.
So this is fair play for you, honestly.
Yeah, it's for work. Omaha's work. Atlanta's work. She's just going to play, watch the Backstreet Boys. So yeah, we gotta tighten it up in the Palmer house and the sleep cycle coming up this weekend. All right, take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Presented to you by Flight by Yingling, the next generation of light beer, crafted by America's oldest brewery. Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it or leave it. Don't tell you.
Flight by Yingling, next generation of light beer. It's summertime. It's hot outside. You're looking for something light but delicious to drink. Flight by Yingling has all the characteristics of the light beer. 2.6 carbs, just 95 calories, but you also get that distinct beer flavor. It is delicious. We were knocking them back at the lake over the weekend. You can as well, whether you're out in the yard, by the pool, at the lake, on the beach, golf course, by the grill, fishing, whatever you're doing outside. If you're looking for a light beer, Flight by Yingling is your spot.
All right, first one here. We talked about this last week. LSU had the SEC Network takeover.
Yes, they did.
Tomorrow, South Carolina will be taking over the SEC Network hunt.
The Gamecocks.
And on the docket for 3 a.m., the Equestrian SEC Championship, which the Gamecocks won.
Excellent
the Equestrian Championship. Take it or leave it.
Well, I'm going to leave it for South Carolina. Obviously, y'all just go ahead and take that. I did catch Flynn attempting to break down the Tour de France on the show this morning.
Wow.
Speaking
Yeah, it
of
just started this week.
Completely unwatchable television. The
yeah.
Equestrian Championship falls right in there, as does the Tour de France.
I don't think it's not completely unwatchable, huh, because there are crashes sometimes, which are very they're exciting.
I don't need to see a bunch of people crashing bikes.
Yeah.
And I just think that when the bikes and the cameras are moving at such a speed where you can't tell what anyone's doing, it's just everyone's just kind of going and they're all staying still on the screen. That's unwatchable.
Okay, well, it's funny you say that because my father-in-law is a very big cyclist guy. I'm pretty sure he's going to watch like every day of this. And you know how long the race is, right? It's literally a month long.
Yeah, it's bad.
And he's going to watch every day of it, and he's going to enjoy watching it. So there are people out there that watch it.
So for me, like, racing is this. I will watch swimming races that take 4 minutes.
Okay.
I will watch track races that take
10 seconds.
I will watch horse races, which take 2.5, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's the end of me with the races.
That's it.
I can't do NASCAR for 4 hours. That's absurd.
No F1.
I'm certainly not watching guys, F1 rolling around. I'm not doing that. No chance. No chance I'm watching a cycle race for 2 hours or for a month. That's just never going to happen. Like, racing needs to get on with it. Like, I need to see the race, and the race is over. I can't watch the drawn-out portion of the race. No chance.
All right, last one here. The aisle seat is better than the window seat on a flight. Take it or leave it.
Leave that.
Leave it alone. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to take it, Hunt, because I need as much room as I can get.
You need more room than most, but I need the window seat so I can put my head against the window and have the side.
That is ideal.
Now, what you get when you lose the radio station's equipment in the St. Louis airport,
you didn't lose it,
Omaha,
it was lost
for a brief
misplaced.
time.
It was misplaced.
But that made me get on the plane last, which got me a middle seat. That was tough. But I got a break in this sense. I had to wake up at 3:15 in the morning, so I was very tired.
Yeah.
And I was relieved I had found the equipment, so I was able to kind of doze off for a few minutes on a short flight in the middle seat. But you don't want to be in the middle seat.
What seat are you going to have next week? Do you know?
I didn't book any of that.
Okay.
And I don't know what airline we're on. I know that it is in New Orleans, and I know what time the flight is.
Okay, well, that's all you really need to know.
They've got all the flight information. I just get on the plane with all the rest of the people. So we'll see. New Orleans to Atlanta, I don't really care.
Yeah, it's like,
especially the time we're going to fly. I'll probably have a cocktail, and I'll probably read some magazines about football. So it'll be fine either way. If I'm trying to get some Z's, it's got to be.
Yeah, you need the window.
For sure. So we'll see. All right, that's it for Take It or Leave It, brought to you by Flight by Yingling. Fun show today. Open things up talking about Kelvin Bolden, I should say, that LSU hired away from Ole Miss. You want to watch that or listen to it on demand. Hunt on LSU for all your LSU football news. Alvin Kamara is a top 10 running back, according to the execs and coaches and scouts in the NFL. Glenn West, we talked some LSU football and baseball. I gave my thoughts on Connor Ware. You can also read about that at louisianasports.net. He's got a decision to make over the next 7 days, so curious to see how that all shakes out. And I kind of gave a thought on what Connor Ware could be to next year's pitching staff if he were to return. 2 o'clock started to ease into LSU's high school signing class. It's a tough ask. It's a lot of names, but I think I kind of set you up there with what we're looking for over the next week. SEC Media Days talk at 2:15, and then Sharief talking Saints, which you can find at Hunt on Saints, wherever you find your podcast. Whole show also archived YouTube, or wherever you find your sound. That's it for us on this Tuesday. We're back Wednesday, same time, same place. Matt Moscona about to drive you home on After Further Review. Y'all stay safe. Have a good one this evening. We'll see you tomorrow for that Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show on the Capital City's leader for sports talk, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
With bold leadership and a growing population, Louisiana is rewarding excellence, attracting high-value companies, and fueling opportunity. Louisiana is winning now, and the sky is the limit. With every region and industry growing across a beautiful state that's more than a culture, it's a community.